Well, that was hard to watch. So the Eagles just dropped their second straight game, this one to the Cowboys in blowout fashion yet again, and people want answers as blame is being thrown all over the place with a bunch of guys taking a ton of heat for the loss, including Darius, who's being absolutely ripped after the game. But perhaps nobody is taking more heat than Nick Sirianni, speaking of which Jason Kelce revealed that Sirianni kinda went off on the Eagles in the midst of their disturbing loss, in which just about everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. But is there still hope for the Birds despite falling all the way to the 5th seed in the NFC? Well, Jalen Hurts seems to think so, as he made a promise filled with hope after the game. So let's talk about that and everything else that went down in a miserable Week 14 for the Eagles. And we won't waste any time, let's get straight into it. Okay, so heading into the Eagles and Cowboys game, we knew how important it was. This was a game between two of the top teams in the NFC and an NFC East battle where whoever won would then currently sit on top of the division, so safe to say, this was one of the biggest matchups of the entire year and easily the biggest game of the year for the Eagles. Now, headed into the game, the Eagles seemed to catch a little bit of a break in an unfortunate turn of events for the Cowboys, as their game-wrecking Defensive Player of the Year candidate Micah Parsons was battling the flu leading into the Sunday night matchup. Now, luckily for him, and if we're being honest, unfortunately for the Eagles, he still played, and despite getting multiple IVs before the game, he still performed at an all-pro level, and him and the Cowboys defense really showed out. But it was the offense for the Cowboys that got off to a quick start, taking a 10-0 lead in the first quarter after an opening drive touchdown to CeeDee Lamb after multiple third down conversions, where the Eagles defense showed absolutely no resistance. Then on the Eagles' first offensive drive of the game, they actually moved the ball pretty well, but the drive did end in untimely fashion with the Jalen Hurts fumble on a quarterback run, making that the 15th turnover for Jalen this season, which is already a career worst mark. And this drive really showed a theme for the Birds all night long, as we'll see later, with the offense actually moving the ball, but then for one reason or another getting stopped once they get to or near the red zone, and this time it was a turnover. The Cowboys then made the score 10-0 with a field goal after the Eagles defense actually got a stop, but of course it couldn't come easy as the Cowboys converted multiple 3rd and 4th downs, including this lapse in coverage on 3rd and 9 where CeeDee Lamb picked up 26 yards, and then later on a 3rd and 17, the Eagles actually gave that up not because of a lapse in coverage, but because Darius picked up kind of a ticky-tack pass interference call, which probably shouldn't have been called if we're being honest, and people were calling it a soft call on social media, and Slay himself seemed to agree with that, as right after the game he retweeted this tweet calling the penalty bogus and soft. And even if this is a true statement, a lot of people were still ripping Slay for doing this. I mean, the clear argument is that after his team got blown up by 20 points in their biggest game of the year versus a division rival, he shouldn't be going on social media right away to call BS on a penalty that happened all the way back in the first quarter. So people are calling him soft and saying he only cares about himself, which I'm not sure I necessarily agree with, but I do understand the point that people are making and saying that his leadership just has to be better. He has to go out there and lead by example and also not fall into the trap of responding to people on social media. I do think people may be overreacting a little bit, but at the same time, I do understand it, and I think it'd be really nice to just hear Slay come out and take 100% accountability and say, look, we're not playing well right now, we need to be a lot better, because he's kind of skated around it the past couple weeks. However, I'm not just going to sit here and say that he's definitively a bad leader, because at the end of the day, we don't know what's going on in that locker room, and we don't see how he is around the rest of his teammates. And I'm also not going to act like he played bad, because he didn't allow a single catch yesterday. So what do you guys think? Does Slay deserve all the criticism he's getting? Now, after the Cowboys took a 10-0 lead, the Eagles scored their first points, with them driving down the field early in the second quarter, but only being able to end up with a field goal. Now, they were able to get those points because of this awesome fake punt that the Eagles dialed up, where Braden Mann threw a nice ball to Alameda Zaccheaus for a huge gain, so thumbs up for that play. But the Eagles weren't able to capitalize with a touchdown because of this horrible drop by A.J. Brown on a beautiful throw from Jalen Hurts on 3rd down, making this another example of the Eagles moving, but then failing to capitalize in opponent's territory. So Jake Elliott then came out, he nailed a 52-yarder to make it a 1-touchdown game. But the defense didn't do their job on the next possession, which was another theme for the Eagles in this first half, as the Cowboys went on a long 6-minute drive that included a 27-yard gain for Jake Ferguson that also saw safety Reed Blankenship get injured on the play with a concussion and then not return, so that just hurt an already struggling Eagles defense. And then Dallas capped off the drive with a 1-yard touchdown run. And then they expanded their lead after the Eagles yet again moved the ball, but again they stalled out and had to settle for a field goal because of a Micah Parsons sack who backed up right tackle Lane Johnson into Jalen Hurts as he channeled his inner Michael Jordan with this flu game performance.
It became personal with me.
Then the Cowboys again went right down the field with literally no resistance whatsoever from the defense, despite there being less than 2 minutes left in the half, in what was a disgraceful drive by the Eagles defense, as Dak Prescott then hit Michael Gallup for a 1-yard touchdown to cap off the drive, giving Dallas a 24-6 lead at the halfway point. At this point, everything that could have gone wrong was going wrong for the Eagles. I mean, the offense was making countless mistakes that were costing them points, and then defensively, it's like they didn't even want to be out there. They offered no resistance to the Cowboys offense. They just pretty much did whatever they wanted, marching right up and down the field, and this marked a historic historically bad stretch for them, as in their past 10 drives, not including the kneel downs at the end of the Niners game, they let up 9 touchdowns and 1 field goal, in what was all around just a pathetic showing from the Eagles in the first half. And Jason Kelce revealed that during halftime, Nick Sirianni may have kind of went off on the Eagles in the locker room, so we're going to talk about that and a lot more in just a minute here. But real quick, I want to say, if you're enjoying this video or finding it informative in any way, and you're part of the 75% of people that haven't done so already, make sure you go down right now, subscribe, and really importantly, turn on notifications so you don't miss when any other videos just like this are uploaded. I think that'd be a win-win for the both of us. I mean, I get more people watching the videos, and you get to see more Eagles content just like this. And also, if you are enjoying the video despite the horrible effort from the Eagles yesterday, make sure you go hit that like button. I'd greatly appreciate it. It helps me out a ton. And now with that being said, let's get back into the video. So after the game, Jason Kelce was asked about Nick Sirianni's messaging to the team after getting blown out for 2 straight games, and he said this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he's pissed off at halftime. He's fired up trying to rally the troops, and just not two really poor performances. But I think Nick feels the same way that we all do, and that we can play much better than we're playing right now.
So it sounds like Nick Sirianni gave a fiery halftime speech in the locker room, or maybe he was just yelling and trying to get the guys pumped up to go out and turn it around in the second half. And still, even though it didn't feel like it, the Eagles were still very much in this game. I mean, if they went down the field and scored on the first possession, they could get right back in it, and Nick Sirianni knew this, so he's trying to get the guys pumped up. Unfortunately, it just didn't work, as what do the Birds do in their first possession straight out of the locker room? They turn it over, as after moving the ball into Dallas territory once again, A.J. Brown catches the ball and begins to run, and Stephon Gilmore is able to punch the ball out, and the Cowboys recovered, killing any Eagles momentum. Now, A.J. Brown's someone else that's getting a lot of criticism after the game, as after his comments during the week before the game, and then with him apparently calling Stephon Gilmore old during the matchup, he's facing a lot of heat for the effort that he showed. I mean, Gilmore did a good job tackling Brown right after he caught the ball all night long, and he also did a pretty good job in coverage as well, and A.J. on top of that also had some drops and of course the fumble, and he was heated pretty much all game, including the end, so people were calling him out as well as Darius Slay, because A.J.'s a guy like Slay who's supposed to be a captain and leader of this team. So again, what do you guys think? Is A.J. deserving of all the criticism? Luckily, the Eagles defense actually stepped up in the second half as they forced a punt, and then actually got the Eagles right back into the game on what could have been the turning point for the team, when Fletcher stripped Dak Prescott, and their rookie Jalen Carter picked up the ball and ran it into the end zone for a touchdown to make it an 11-point game. So credit to the defense for actually kind of showing up in the second half and making that play right there that could have been game-changing. Unfortunately for the Eagles, their offense stayed asleep, getting stopped on 4th down on their next drive just a couple plays after Jalen Hurts delivered a beautiful pass to DeVonta Smith in the end zone, and he just flat out dropped it, which uncharacteristically wasn't his first drop of the game. And then to add on to that, on the Eagles' next offensive possession, which was their final hope, Smitty fumbled the ball once again deep in enemy territory in the red zone, making it overall a really bad game for both DeVonta Smith and also A.J. Brown. Plus, the Cowboys hit 3 field goals in the second half in what was an incredible performance from kicker Brandon Aubrey that should earn him NFC Special Teams Player of the Week, and with that, you have the pathetic final score of 33-13 with the Cowboys on top.
Oh my God! Oh jeez! Oh my God!
With this loss, the Eagles fall out of first place and go all the way down to the 5th spot in the NFC playoff picture, with the Cowboys jumping up to 2nd and the Niners getting 1st. Now, the good news is not all hope is lost. I mean, the Eagles still control their destiny in the division, as they get the tiebreaker if they win the rest of their games, and the number 1 seed is then still a very real possibility if the Niners lose a game. The bad news is, over the past 2 weeks, the Eagles look like a bad football team. They just look like a bad football team all the way around, and they've lost 2 games against their top 2 rivals in the NFC conference in embarrassing fashion. Now, Brandon Graham seems confident that they'll see both those teams again, and the results could be very different.
It ain't gonna be perfect, but it's how we handle it together. And I know that, losing a game like this, everybody gonna say what they gonna say. Don't worry about it, because at the end of the day, it's about us, and it's always gonna be about us. And if we gonna see them guys again, we're gonna see both them teams again, and we gotta make sure we on our stuff when we see them. Because when you're playing good teams, you can't give them the ball 3 times, and then we can't not get off the field because of penalties too. So we gotta make sure we detailing everything, and I know we're gonna do that.
Man, I hope you're right, Brandon, but to do that, the Eagles got a lot of work to do. They got a lot to get fixed. There's a lot of reasons that they lost these last 2 games, whether it be them turning the ball over or committing stupid penalties, or players not executing and dropping passes like we saw in this game, or not being able to get off the field on 3rd down defensively, or not being able to stop the run, which for the first 12 weeks of the season was not an issue at all, or the offense not being able to score in the red zone, which that's an issue I thought we had fixed. or the coaching not being on point. I mean, all these issues that have kind of been there throughout the year for the Eagles, but they were getting away with it because they were winning. Now they're coming back to bite them in these last 2 games, and it's resulted in 2 horrible losses. And I do gotta say, the coaching has been a problem all year, and it's been particularly bad these past 2 games. I mean, defensively, they just look like they don't want to be out there half the time. They offer up no resistance to anything. This bend but don't break style of defense that the Eagles believe in so much for some reason isn't working because we're bending and we're also breaking. The defense can't get off the field on 3rd down, they can't get off the field in the red zone, and they can't create turnovers. Now, part of that is execution, but a lot of it is the coaching, the scheme. So I'm calling out Sean Desai right now. He just has to be better. Things have to change. Also, on top of that, the defensive line and pass rush, despite being able to get pressure, is just not getting home and changing games like we've seen in the past, and that's been a big part of the struggles as well. Josh Sweat actually called out the unit after the game saying, quote, "I'm tired of effing almost. We're too good of a rush to be getting too many almost, too many QB hits, too many pressures. We need to get home. We've seen we can be dominant, we can change games." So I'm at least glad to hear Sweat showing some passion about this, but now they just gotta go out and get it fixed. But then moving on, offensively, the lack of creativity from Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni is just crazy. I mean, I think this user on Twitter put it perfectly saying, quote, "My biggest complaint about Brian Johnson is the play design. Last year, Steichen created so many easy throws for Jalen and allowed him to get into a rhythm. This year, it just seems like there's nothing easy for Jalen, and everything's down the field without any creativity." And I completely agree with that, and I also think the tendency to get away from the run game also really hurts. But the lack of creativity and easy throws for Jalen is really alarming, and Nick Sirianni isn't excused from this either. This is his offense, and it's been horrible these past 2 weeks, and there's been problems all year, like I said. Now, I will say there are some people completely overreacting, saying Nick Sirianni needs to be fired, which is ridiculous. I mean, we lost 2 games in embarrassing fashion, sure, but we were also 10-1 under Nick this year, and went to the Super Bowl last year, and in his first season as head coach, he led that team that was supposed to win 4 or 5 games to the playoffs. So he does not need to be fired after 2 bad games. Let's stop with the overreacting. I think this is where we need to be a little bit better as a fan base. But still, his lack of offensive creativity and the problems with his scheme are very evident at this point, and he needs to be held accountable for that. I do think he's really missing Shane Steichen right now, who he was very creative and schemed up a lot of these easy throws for Jalen and allowed their run game to dominate, and all that allowed the offense to be just dominant overall last year, and I think we're clearly missing him this season. And now Nick Sirianni and the coaching staff really need to look in the mirror and do what they can to figure this out. I mean, Sirianni said after the game he doesn't have the magic answer for all these problems that the Eagles have been dealing with, but they better figure it out fast. And they might need to make some major changes if they want to bounce back from these losses and still get where they want to go, which is obviously the Super Bowl, and they want to win it this time. Now, it seems like Nick Sirianni and the Birds are embracing the task of facing adversity after these 2 tough losses.
Now we're going through some adversity, and so adversity can do a couple things to you. It can break you, or it can make you way better. And I know that everybody that's in that locker room has been through in their lives and has made it to this point. They've made it to this point because they've been through, and so that adversity has made a lot of us in that locker room where we are today. And we got to remember that, we got to internalize that, and we got to make sure that the adversity that we're facing right now, we're able to get through and make sure we get better from it.
Hopefully this isn't just coach speak from Nick Sirianni, and the Eagles actually come through on the other side as a better football team. And I do want to stress this, while this is all very concerning what we've seen from the Eagles these past 2 games, the sky is not falling. The Eagles still control their destiny in the division, they still very well could get the #1 seed, and they just have to take advantage of this opportunity. And I think Jalen Hurts put it perfectly after the game, as he offered a hope-filled message and also a promise.
Like I said, it's as simple as it's something we're going through, not something we're stuck in. And I think the will for this team to get things done is going to continue to be challenged, and it's all in how we respond to that. And I think it's a beautiful opportunity for us. You have to have a hunger, you have to have a will and want to, and I think we got the right guys to do that. I just think it's something simply that we're going through.
He said all the right things. Now he and the Birds just have to go out there and do it. Can they bounce back this week for Seattle, who can be very tough, especially at home? Can they at least get back to that same team that we saw beat Miami, Kansas City, Buffalo, and Dallas earlier in the year? Because right now, the way they're playing, it looks like they could very well be a first-round exit. So the Eagles really got to look themselves in the mirror this week. They got to lock in, and they got to fix all these problems, come out next week for Seattle and make a statement. There's still hope for this team. There's still hope of them getting back to the Super Bowl and winning it, and that starts this week. Now, I'm going to have plenty of coverage leading leading into the game versus the Seattle Seahawks on Monday night. So if you don't want to miss any of that, again, subscribe and also turn on notifications. Also, drop a like down on this video if you did enjoy, and also give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you still believe in this Eagles team despite 2 rough losses, or are you ready to just say, hey, this isn't our year? Also, if you want to watch another Eagles video, you can go check this one out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.